Yes. Okay. So again, welcome everyone to our session on Mapillary and RapiD with our esteemed guests from Meta, Ben and Chris. So just a quick run through about what we're going to do today is that we'll be giving 25 to 30 minutes each to our lovely speakers to give us a walkthrough about Mapillary and RapiD. And then after that, we'll be opening the floor for some quick questions for them. And then lastly, we will be opening some breakout rooms so that everyone could try it out. So we'll be opening 3 breakout rooms for Eastern and Southern Africa, West and Northern Africa, and Asia Pacific. So let me just remind you that this session is recorded. So feel free to leave if you don't want to be part of the recording or don't open your camera. Uh, and I'll be passing the floor to our first speaker. Chris, are you ready for Mapillary?
Yep, all ready.
Yes.
So here we go. And slides up, right?
Yes,
okay.
Perfect.
Great. So my name is Chris Beto. I work on the Open Maps and Community team with Meta. So I focus on Mapillary, OpenStreetMap, and anything maps and GIS. So today I'm going to start off by talking about enriching OpenStreetMap using street level imagery. So the goal here is really to look at how imagery like Mapillary that's community contributed can help you to improve map data inside the OpenStreetMap editors. So just a really quick look at where Mapillary is integrated. So you can see it in JOSM or JOSM. That's the desktop editor for OpenStreetMap. You can find Mapillary in the ID editor that's in the browser at openstreetmap.org. You can find it in Map with AI. That is our version of ID editor with enhanced features that Meta makes available. And that includes a lot of extra open data. And Mapillary is also there with some upcoming features coming that'll make it better and better. And finally, we have also Vespucci on the Android editor. You can turn on the Mapillary layer. So really quick overview. Here's what it looks like to use Mapillary inside of JOSM. You have a viewer. You can turn on the image layers. We won't really delve into this example too much, but there are some great tutorials on YouTube. So see at the top right, just search Mapillary JOSM, and you can find some great introductions there. And Vespucci as well, just a really quick overview. You can go ahead and hit the top right button in Vespucci on Android. You can see Mapillary as a layer option, and you can touch the eyeball button that will make it visible. And then you'll see this blue layer on the map. Each one shows the way a camera is facing with that triangle. So I circled that in red on the top right image here. And then it will load the image, so you can see there on the bottom right, one of the images corresponding that. And you can use it to just see what the map is showing in an image and do things like add the type of sidewalk, the color of a building, an address, and many more things. So finally, we'll take a look at what we're going to focus on, which is using RapiD in the browser. So similar to ID Editor again, you've used ID Editor before. ID has a simpler interface. It's very much for manual mapping, and it works a little better on a slower connection because of less features. And then if you go over to RapiD, you'll get a faster workflow. You get a lot more features, AI generated data, as well as a lot of open data provided partnerships like with Esri. And some new updates coming are going to make sure it has a lot better performance. So it should be very fast, less lag on any connection. So we'll hop over for demoing. So a refresher on Mapillary, if you're not familiar with it. Mapillary is a street level imagery platform. It's built by users around the world. Those users can be individuals like you and me. They can be groups like HOT and youth mappers. Some of them are companies and organizations, so ranging from Red Cross to the UN to local companies that make a business off of helping map cities with cameras in regular forward-facing images and 360-degree images. So here's the world coverage. Everywhere that's green has some Mapillary. So you can zoom in by visiting this. That's mapillary.com/app, APP. And you can go visit where you live and see how it looks and where you can contribute. So we'll zoom in here on Mapillary. This is the island in Hawaii. So you can see it's very well covered. As we zoom in, there are a lot of images on the roads around the circle of the island and many of the main towns. And if we select one of the images here, you can see that this one is actually in 360 degrees. So it's a really nice experience. So this is captured using a special camera. So some of these cameras are also just an Android phone or iPhone. You can download the mobile app and start making your own Mapillary images this way. You can also use GoPros, a variety of other cameras, including dash cams as well. So you can see on the map, we have the location of this image. And as we pan around, we can see which way we're facing. So overall, it's a nice way to explore Mapillary here. You can check out anywhere in the world. You can search for it up top. You can put in a filter by username, by date, and you can even see how old or new the images are based on some color coding here. So if you activate that, you'll see red is older, green is newer, and yellow is kind of in between, and that can help you choose where you maybe want to go contribute in the future. And a nice little secret here is if you go over to the right side of the map, you can click this 3-dot button. And over here, you have these options to edit OpenStreetMap with this image. So you can click RapiD, and that's going to open it up in RapiD for you. So it's a great way to just find what you're looking for on Mapillary and then go straight into map editing. And giving a little bit different of an approach here. So we'll let that one load. By default, RapiD's hosted at mapwith.ai. And if you visit that website, let's see, a few of these have to load up. If you visit that website, you'll see some information about RapiD, and you'll need to scroll down and click Start Mapping. And from there, it's going to take you to a random location in the world. So from there, you'll need to so you hit that Start Mapping button. You'll need to scroll to wherever you like. So a good shortcut, again, is to go to the Mapillary website if you really want to use the Mapillary images for editing. But either way, you can start in the RapiD map view and just start finding the place that you want to map. So let's go back to RapiD. Probably have too many windows open here. So we've got the image open that we wanted to edit with. And again, we can scroll around the map. I can see this church building next to me. And also I can see that on the satellite image. So it's really nice here is our mind starts to kind of coordinate between what we see on the ground and what we see from the air above. And we can use this to edit some attributes. So in this case, we can see, for example, this has a sign out front of it, and that might not be mapped yet. Very likely it's not. But this is the kind of information that we can add to the map. So if we go to add a point to the map, I can put that on the grass right here. And we can put something like information into the browser. And we can call that an information board. And now we've just used that street level imagery to make that map data a little bit better. So there's two ways to navigate once you're in the imagery. At the top, you have these left and right arrows, and you have a play button. So if you push the button on the right at the top, that's telling you to move forward. So we're looking backwards here. Let's move to look forwards. So with this, we can start navigating that imagery just up and down the street. And if we press the play button, let's see, let me recenter here. The play button is going to automatically move it down the street for you. So that can be easy if you want to just sit back, watch the imagery and see where it takes you until you find something you want to edit. It can take a minute to load, especially these more dense images, these 360-degree ones, whereas it'll go a lot more rapidly depending how close the images are together using other images. But in this case, again, we can see we have a bicycle lane, we have sidewalk. So these are both something we could start mapping again. So I'm going to hit the W key, and this makes it so I can see that data in the background a little better. If I hit W key again, it goes back. That's wireframe mode. So it makes it a little subdued. And overall, we can add more things here. So here's the sidewalk. I can see it's to the right side of the camera. Look on the map, you can see that camera's facing downward, south. So I can place sidewalk segments here. And let's call that sidewalk in the search. So we'll get some warnings. That's because we need to make sure we connect it to the greater network. But just as a quick example there, we can now see that because we find that in the image, it's a good way to confirm where it is and start adding it on satellite, even though the satellite is a little blurry there. So sometimes the Mapillary images are going to interfere with what you're seeing on that satellite map. So on the right side of this editor, if you hit this kind of gear and line icon, or I guess that's a polygon and a line, you can also use the F key to open and close that. Mapillary is the option here that's activated on photo overlays. So if you hit that check mark, it will turn it off. And then we can see a little better that there is kind of a sidewalk there, but it's not that clear. You still have the image viewer open here, so you can continue to scoot forward in that viewer down the street without the green layer interfering. So it's really nice if you want to see some of the details from satellite. And then of course, if you want to try a different satellite layer, right now we're running, so we'll hit that layer button that's above the map overlay and data menu. So we have the Esri layer activated. You can switch to Bing. Sometimes that's a little better. It's great to try all the options in your area. So this has a little more stronger color, and in some ways you can see more of the details. So moving down this street, I can see something in the road, and from aerial, it's not really clear what that is. It might be a bridge, but we can see really clearly in the street level there's a crosswalk. So it's a great opportunity to go back to the map. You can use the W key to turn off wireframe mode again. And I can push the number 1 on the keyboard or click the point on top and drop a point right there. And I would call this a marked crosswalk. So let's see. Actually, I first need to move this point to be on the road, since that's the road it's crossing. Now that it's there, marked crosswalk shows up as an option. So that's great because we just indicated, hey, there's a crosswalk in the road. We can see it with this Mapillary image, and it helps us get a little more information about pedestrian infrastructure. Now we can also take that sidewalk we drew. We can draw a line that crosses right on top of what we see in the satellite image of that crosswalk. Give it the same category, marked crosswalk. And then we get this warning that it crosses this road, South Keyhigh Road, but it's not connected. So we can select that first option to automatically connect it, and it's going to put it right at that spot where we had already put the node for a crosswalk. So now our map data is looking really nice as far as that crosswalk. We can see more sidewalk on the other side, so we could spend a lot of time editing that. But we can see what else we have here too. So you have power lines. It looks like there's a street lamp attached to that as well. So those are all something we can add. We can see over here, there's houses. So those ones aren't entirely on the map yet. We have some suggestions here that Ben will cover later. But let's scoot back one image. So I'll go left on that top menu. So here we can see a driveway. So that's also something you might look into mapping, is like any kind of alleyways, driveways, roads that aren't there. So I'll call this one an alley. I'm not sure where it leads. But again, we can draw that because we see that right here to the right of the image. Connect the features because it crosses that sidewalk. We always want to make sure they're connected. And once again, we've got that on the map now. So when we look at these other items though, like these utility poles, we have another source of data from Mapillary that will help us with that. So I'll hit the F key again. That'll take us to this menu item on the right, again with the line and the polygon. So we're in the map data menu. And we have two kind of sub options underneath the Mapillary. So one is map features and the other is traffic signs. So we turn on map features. This is going to load this layer that shows things that Mapillary automatically found in the images. So that's using a machine learning algorithm, specifically computer vision is what we call this. And it sounds a lot like it is. It's when the computer is going to see what's in the image and label it with a name. So we found these utility poles, and in the background, the computer reconstructs the map in 3D and tries to find where that utility pole should be on OpenStreetMap. So we see these gray utility poles now alongside the road. In this case, we have 1, 2, 3 of them. So it's probably these 1, 2, and 3 that we have in this current picture. And we can add these to the map as well. So the current way that we'll do it is we'll just hit the number 1 key, gives you a point, and you can just drop it right there next to that pole. I hopped around on the image a little. But we'll choose utility pole as the category there. And then if we want, we could add something else like the material. It looks like it's wood in the photo. And we don't really know much else about it. We're not really sure if it's telecom or power, street lighting. So we can leave that blank unless you really know what you're looking at. So once we've added one like that, let's see, find our position again. So we've got it there. It's pretty much right next to where it was. If your satellite imagery is really good, you may also see that utility pole from the air, but otherwise it's pretty nice to just drag it and roughly share that same Mapillary position. So it's not always going to be totally accurate, but it's going to be very close to where it should be. So it's a great way to guide you on that. There's several other things you can see here. So this icon with the house, that's a driveway. So similar to the one we added. It's showing a point, but you'll want to map a line for that. So it's just a good way of seeing where the driveway kind of meets the street. You have some crosswalk detected around here. So that's probably the one that we see, but that's a little less accurate, again, as a point instead of a line like we want to map it. You have other things like the water drains and like the sewage hole covers. Here's a street lamp as well. So this one, if we click on it, it'll actually load an image with it. So here, let's turn on the Mapillary layer again on the right. So it's unchecked. And we're going to turn that back on and we can see where it took us. So we're now at kind of another image here. And if we turn that camera back toward where we clicked on that street lamp, it's actually highlighted in yellow there. That's the one we clicked on. It's a really nice feature. And we can see it's attached to the utility pole. So that can be a complicated case, but let's add a point. And let's call that a street lamp. Let's see. Switched images, so I'll reorient kind of a closer view. But because this is a street lamp and a power pole, you can go down in this manual text entry area with tags. You can say power equals pole. So it's both things. But if you'd like, you could just map probably one or the other to start and later try to get some advice on the community how to best combine those or tag them in that situation. So that can really vary by where you are in the world and what the standards are. So it's great to consult with others. So overall, we've looked at quite a few of these different features. We've looked at this great 360 imagery. I'm going to load up another image now on the same street. And it looks like this one is not 360. But if you go around the world with Mapillary, the majority of your imagery is probably going to look like this. So you can't scroll all the way around in the image like you can in a full 360. You're just facing forward. But you can still go forward and backwards using these top buttons. And it's still really useful. So we can see things like a fire hydrant. We can see that crosswalk. We can see another utility pole. And if we look on the map, using the satellite as well, we can see the same. So here's a crosswalk. That fire hydrant, it's not totally clear where it is. But if we kind of use our eyes as well as the satellite, it looks like it's just before that crosswalk on the left side. So let's go ahead and try to place that. And that's probably going to be, oh, sorry, on the right side. That's probably going to be about right here near these other icons. And we can call that a fire hydrant. Oops. Not a fire hose, a fire hydrant. Great. So that's added to the map. And again, you can add more things, like we can see this one's actually yellow. So we can hit that in the color. A lot more that we could get from it, like the shape. And then if you know anything extra, just locally, like who the operator is, that can be helpful to add. So finally, once you're in this image, you'll see also these arrows on top of the image. So that will navigate you spatially to any other nearby images. So the top ones you can see, that's going to move you in the same sequence. So this same image by the same user using the same camera. It'll navigate you from that if we push this spatial arrow, and that puts us back in the 360. So that's a little bit more of a free-form way to move. And here we have only a few images, but if you're in a city that has a lot of dense imagery, it's going to move you between all sorts of different cameras, different dates, and different sequences of images. So that's kind of helpful if you want to stay in the same area and just take a slight step around whatever you're looking at. But if you want to stay with the consistent stream of images, you can use those top controls. And finally, let's take a look at the traffic sign layer. So map features was activated. I unchecked it. I've added traffic signs now as a layer. So we'll give that a moment to load. Here we go. So we have a stop sign here. I'm going to click one of the images right next to that stop sign. And let's spin around and see if we can get a look at it. There it is. So you can add these to the map as well. Not every traffic sign is like this. Sometimes you have speed limit signs. So I selected this road. We can see there's no speed limit marked. If we see a speed limit sign nearby, we can use that to mark the speed. But for a stop sign, we can double click in that road. And we can actually type in here stop sign. And then you can say the direction. So this kind of depends on the road. This is a one-way, so we'll say backward. And you can see it's facing toward where you would drive from, particularly in the car that took this picture. But it might be different if you put backward or forward on different roads. So I would just experiment with that until it looks correct to you. But that tells us that right here, we have a stop sign. Gives us a little more information about the road structure. So overall, we'll wrap up this section. Keep in mind that you can get a lot of different types of traffic signs and map features depending where you are. And you don't have to be in a car if you're going to capture the imagery using the Mapillary mobile app, for example. You can do it while you're walking down the sidewalk. There's ways to attach it to a bicycle. You can do it in a boat. You can do it on roller skates. There's all kinds of ways. So get creative. But I encourage you to go out and capture because you can generate data like this that helps you improve the map data. So finally, we'll go to upload our changes. Click on the top right. And you're going to see that your change set is tagged with Mapillary, street level photos, the Mapillary map features, and the Mapillary signs. So that's great to know because it means that you had great evidence for why you added things to the map and what they were. And that's always going to show up anytime you use this. So you can search backwards also to find Mapillary change sets if you're someone that's doing validation or monitoring change sets. Great, so I will pass on now to my colleague, Ben Clark. He's going to talk more about RapiD and generally using it in a lot more advanced way outside of Mapillary.
Hi, Chris. Maybe before we jump to Ben so that everyone's blurting out their questions right now, I'd be open, if it's okay, I'd open the floor to some people who would like to ask their questions.
Yeah, sure. Sounds great.
Okay. So for everyone, please feel free to unmute. If you have any question, please raise your hand. Please drop it in the chat box. I'll be more than happy to read your questions. But I see here that some of the questions, Chan is already answering it while you were explaining it a while ago. So let's give some time. Any questions from anyone?
I just see a few in the chat. So I guess, are we raising hands for questions? Otherwise, I can cover those in the chat too. So one in the chat asked if Mapillary is in the tasking manager. So let's see, if ID and RapiD are, as Ken said. So Mapillary, we have some ideas about putting in the tasking manager a little more. You don't see it right now, but I would keep an eye out. There's plans coming, so.
Yeah, and for folks that are interested in a sort of a basic rundown of what ID or RapiD offer outside of Mapillary, we'll cover that in a moment in my section.
Okay. Yeah, I think I see here just one reaffirming question. So the map features and graphic signs are automatically generated by AI from Mapillary pictures from Radin Stamp Hatch. Is that correct?
So that's right. So Mapillary runs an algorithm on all the community images, and it finds everything in the pictures, and then also estimates the location on the map, so longitude and latitude. So that's right. Everything you upload to Mapillary will automatically try to make data from it.
Any more questions? Is the algorithm from Meta?
Yeah, so it's specifically a Mapillary algorithm, and Mapillary is part of Meta and the Maps team at Meta. And we have a question from Alia also.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, lovely. Yes.
Hi there. So basically, this is my first time learning about Mapillary and all of these things that you've basically mentioned. I'm just a bit confused from the previous slide. What is really Vespucci, Map with AI, RapiD? If like you can just give a short description of each software here, so I can just learn how are they all like interconnected and related to each other.
Yeah, sure. So I'll pull up that slide again here. Essentially, that wants to reload. So essentially, we have OpenStreetMap. That's that global shared map of the world.
Yeah.
And there's different ways of contributing data to it. So you can do it on a computer. You can do it from a mobile phone. So on the computer, there's JOSM, and that's like a standalone desktop application. So similar to something like Slack or Zoom or your calculator. Those are all apps of their own. And JOSM is like that.
Okay.
And that one has a lot of advanced features. So if you're, for a metaphor, I'd say like that's the dentist office. And then you can go down to stuff like ID. That's in the browser, and that's a little bit more of like a toothbrush. It doesn't go as crazy. But ID and Map with AI's RapiD are basically the same thing. RapiD is just an expanded version of it that has a lot more features, and then we'll cover kind of the details of that. But essentially, ID is something you can open in your browser like Chrome, Firefox, Edge. I don't know if they use Internet Explorer anymore, any of these. And finally, Vespucci is an app for your mobile phone, so it's on Android.
Okay.
So all of these are ways of you contributing data to that global OpenStreetMap database. It's just many different approaches.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. And James had a question as well.
Yes, James, are you here?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, James, thank you.
Okay. So I recently started mapping with Taxi Manager. So in Taxi Manager is basically buildings, roads, waterways, points of interest. And now I'm looking at Mapillary, and they are even mapping minute details like even a stop sign, a traffic light. So from a beginner's perspective, what exactly is Mapillary helping to do, and how can they help me to better contribute to OSM?
Yeah, great question, James. The most important thing that Mapillary helps you to do as a beginner is it helps you to understand the environment that you're mapping. So in a map editor like the one here on the screen, it's very important that we can see that satellite image in the background, for example, because we want to start tracing things such as a crosswalk, the building outline, and where the roads are, even if they're missing. So the satellite image is really helpful because we think of that as something similar to the map. The most important thing about Mapillary is it gives you also a real world picture, and it gives you the location of that image because of the GPS location. So it helps you understand the detail. So in this case, we can see a building from the satellite, but we don't know what color that building is. But you can go into Mapillary and you can do something like edit the color of the building and say this is brown, or the type of building, like this one is a garage, whereas from satellite we can only see that it's a rooftop. So overall, Mapillary just helps you get extra detail, but it's a real world view and should help you therefore create better map data beyond just what you see from above.
So what would be the best use case? Because even though I'm starting off as a contributor, eventually I want to be able to leverage the API and then use that for mobility solutions um, and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to picture the long-term gain, if I'm to put it that way.
Yeah, in the long term, it's just the fact that you will, if you're a contributor to Mapillary, you're able to create that imagery of the ground scene and share it with everyone, and it stays there for the future, so someone can reference it. But ideally, everything you see in the photo, such as these utility poles, the location of the driveways, all of this is going to be map data that will help you improve any kind of other map you're working on. So ideally, it's just OpenStreetMap here. So the long-term gain there is just that more and more things can be derived from this imagery, where the map is kind of blank in many spots now. You can see exactly what's there. So really just as simple as keeping it as a reference point for you in the future and getting data out of it a lot easier than manually walking on that street and writing down the location and name of everything you find. You can just go down the street really quickly with a camera and then come back to reference it at home forever.
All right. So basically, all these data points can be accessed from an API.
Yeah,
Let's say, for example, you're trying to build an app for firefighters, and you're trying to locate where all these water outlets are. Yeah, but is that something that's possible with Mapillary?
Some of those things are, like finding a water source is something you can there, but we have a limited class, a set of data classes. So you can check that on mapillary.com/developer. So that's kind of a different topic as far as building a separate app. But I just recommend mapillary.com/developer for those questions, and then you can follow up with us as well after on that topic. But for now, we'll keep focused on the OpenStreetMap aspect.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. So in the meantime, in the essence of time, we might need to cut the question and answer portion for now. But I'm sure Chris will be answering some of their questions via chat, right, Chris? So let's move forward first to our next speaker. Ben, are you ready? Okay, off to you,
Yes,
Ben.
I am.
I was expecting that there were no questions, and then suddenly it rained. The questions rained. So, okay. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Ben.
Sure. So, hi everyone, my name is Ben Clark. I'm a software developer here at Meta, and I've been working on the RapiD editor for the last couple of years. So we're just going to walk through, for any folks who are fairly new to OpenStreetMap or who may be unfamiliar with RapiD, to show you how RapiD is able to help better enable you as mappers to add features to the map without having to hand draw things. So we'll start with a little bit of review. This is a scene inside the ID editor, which is the default editor you can obtain through your browser. And in this particular case, we have two buildings. The building on the right has been mapped, and there is a nice L-shaped border around it. Building on the left has not. So what you as a mapper would need to do is go up to the top, click on the area control, and then you would have to trace through exhaustively every single corner of the building, and then move over to the left and select the building type. So as you can imagine, if you had to do this as part of a hot task, if you were supposed to map all of the buildings within a 1 kilometer grid, that this could take quite a long time to do. Then you also have the additional things, which I didn't show in this little mini video here, things like making all of the corners in the building square and making sure that you're aligned well. It can take quite a bit of time. So how does RapiD help us with this problem? Well, RapiD has everything that ID does. So if you're familiar with ID, RapiD should be very easy to pick up. The big difference that Chris mentioned before during his portion of the talk is we have a lot of open data. I think it's on the order of millions and millions of either shapes or address points, so map entities of different flavors that are all ready to be added to OpenStreetMap. They've been licensed, they've been curated by our partners at Esri to ensure that whatever entity or municipality or county or province that owns the data has licensed it for use within OpenStreetMap. And so they're available for us to just pull for free here within RapiD. A few other things that RapiD has. Chris mentioned earlier, just for one example, about how useful it is to switch back and forth between different types of imagery, just to make sure that you're looking at the correct sort of ground truth in whatever area you're mapping in. So we have a couple of keyboard shortcuts to help you switch seamlessly back and forth from different types of imagery. Finally, and this isn't something that you would notice as a mapper, but this is all backed by a meta-hosted service. So when you ask RapiD to load a data layer, our service does the heavy lifting of going to Esri or to Microsoft or to Meta's own servers to grab all of these great map features for you. So now we'll actually look at how RapiD differs from the ID editor. So we'll start, and this is just OpenStreetMap data with basic satellite imagery that we're looking at here. And as you could tell from Chris's talk, this is going to be your default setting as a mapper. You're going to be spending a lot of time looking at top-down satellite imagery, trying to reason about it, and add features to the map. So to help us focus on the data, I will get rid of the background imagery here. So now we're just looking at the OSM data. You can see we have some power lines, we have roads, we have a municipal border here. So what if we actually wanted to start adding some buildings? Well, we could draw them exhaustively, but in this particular case, this is a county in Nebraska. The town's municipal territory authority actually has a list of building shapes that they've made available to Esri, and we can just download those. So more on the workflow in a second, but we can individually click on these things or hover over them to see what kind of data they have and to just add them to the map with a single click without having to draw them. We can also do this with an address point data set that the same county has made available. So let's focus on roads for a second. I'm going to go down to the lower left section of the map here, and we will see after enabling the Facebook roads layer that you see the road in the center and sort of this pinkish color. And we have the use or ignore this feature. So in this case, all we have to do is select the road and hit either A or click on the use this feature button, and it will add the road to the map. And it will do the work of joining the road to the existing road network. So you don't have to do any extra work there either. So this should hopefully give you an idea of the time savings you'll get as an editor to not have to exhaustively draw and connect all of these shapes. You can just select them, compare them to satellite imagery, and add them if you like. Now it's that last part, comparing to satellite imagery, that's very important. Or in the case of Chris's talk, sometimes you may not be sure about a map feature, so you might want to enable some street level imagery to get some better local context of where you're looking. But there's a problem, and this is why we need people to help us. This isn't all automated. We need humans in the loop to help out, because I will re-enable the satellite imagery, and you will see that we have just succeeded in drawing a road straight through a building. So this is a problem that I want all of the mappers here to understand, is that the features that RapiD gives you are suggestions, and some of them may in fact be incorrect, or they may need additional work. Chris said something important before, which is you always want to sort of go with the local community as far as guidance on how to map certain features that may be difficult to understand or reason about. Depending on where you are in the world, mapping norms change. So some folks would argue that we should keep this road and then mark a certain section of it as being underneath the building. Other people would say that road shouldn't be there at all, get rid of it. So there's always judgment calls to be made. And as an example, this is the user interface in RapiD when we hover over a building provided to us by Esri. Esri has a bunch of metadata for each one of the buildings that it provides. And this metadata is actually just as important as the actual feature shapes themselves. So whenever you add a point, a road, or a building to OpenStreetMap, it's not just about the geometry. And as you saw from the Mapillary points earlier, the type of point that you're adding, the material of the light pole that you just added to the map, all those things are also important too. So here we have a bunch of different address information. We also have a source data set. So this is also helpful because you don't have to exhaustively type all of this stuff yourself. It's just freely available. The town's made it available to add to OSM. So this covers the important parts of the UI that RapiD has in addition to ID. So RapiD has a single button near the top of the screen, which you see up here. And when you click on it, you get a new dataset dialog. So that dialog has Facebook roads, Microsoft buildings by default, and then an add manage datasets button. By default, you don't have these two datasets here, the city of Fort Collins, Indianapolis. Those are just included in a screenshot after I added them. If you hit add manage datasets, you get a whole dataset browser. There are hundreds of different datasets in here. You can filter them by text. You can filter them by feature type. And then you can add dataset for each individual one you want to add and hit OK. Once you've added them, if it's a non-global dataset, say it's for a single town or county, you can click center map here. Whoops. You can click center map here on the dialog, and it will take you directly to that area of the world where you can then zoom in and see the data. So we had some questions in the chat also about RapiD and the tasking manager, and the answer is yes, RapiD is available in the tasking manager. You just need to make sure as a project manager that you explicitly add RapiD as an option in the editor selector here. And then once your project is created, as a mapper, you need to make sure that you select RapiD from the dropdown within the project page as you either validate or map each task. And RapiD is available just natively right within the hot tasking manager now. It doesn't need to open up a separate window. It's all nice, all in the same UI. So one of my coworkers, Zach, is also here to answer any questions you may have about the tasking manager integration and how all that operates. Cool. That's about it, at least as far as the presentation is concerned. So now I will cut over to actually viewing RapiD. And so I'll share my screen over there. Please bear with me. Cool. Hopefully people can see my screen now. So this is RapiD. I will zoom the UI in a little bit so it's a little easier to read the text for people. And so this is the dataset browser. This is an area inside Kenya where I've enabled both the Microsoft buildings. Also, one of the datasets available to us is this Africa buildings dataset that we actually get, which was released by Google last year, which has a number of buildings, I think over 500,000 building predictions inside Africa. And so we have buildings from Microsoft in one color, buildings from Google in a different one. And then we can go ahead and browse around and hover over them. You can see in the upper left of the screen, the metadata that is applied to each one of these buildings from Google. And then if we want to start adding them, we can just click, hit A, and then the feature is added to the map. Now, we run into some issues where we have multiple building data sets sort of overlaid on top of one another. And this is where things get a little bit interesting. You have to decide what looks best for you. And to help you do that, as a mapper, you're going to find that different imagery works best in different places. So we actually have a feature in RapiD where you can click these stars to indicate that you are favoriting a particular imagery layer. And then you can hit the comma and period buttons to seamlessly switch back and forth between the different imagery types. And if you ever forget that particular trick, you can go into the help keyboard shortcuts, and you'll see that we have this helpful little RapiD logo next to any of the keyboard shortcuts that are different from ID. So these are extra bits of functionality that we've added ourselves. Now I'll show you one of the other bits of functionality inside the Add Manage dataset. So let's say that I wanted to go and check out these buildings in Indianapolis. So I can hit Add Dataset. I'll remove the Africa Buildings dataset, hit OK. And then back here, I can click on Center Map Here. And this will automatically switch my view to a different portion of the globe. Then I'll click Zoom in to edit. Now we just need to wait for the data to fill in. And so now these green buildings that you see here are coming to us from the data set that we just enabled. So these behind the scenes are Meta hosted service is querying Esri's data, obtaining all these building shapes, and then adding them to the map in real time. So I'll go ahead and hit the period button to switch imageries. Oh, looks like I need to zoom in a little bit more. There. So that about covers the basics. I'll open things up to questions now for folks who have questions about maybe the data sets, the workflow.
Yes, go ahead, Chilufia.
Hi, Ben. Thank you. I have a question, and my first question is, I really want to know the difference between the lab ID and the ID editor, because when I'm mapping using ID editor, of course, I go on a OpenStreetMap, I search my area of interest, then the area will show there. I'll zoom to the area and start mapping. After I map, I finish it. I'll give it a tag, then I'll upload. But what happened with the lab with ID? Am I supposed to do the same? That's the first question. Then second, it's showing like map with ID showing some features which is in the color of Microsoft. I'm not so sure whether it is direct link to Microsoft buildings or Microsoft features, because the color that is showing pink is it's something that comes when I'm mapping using JOSM. When I line the AI, that's the color that comes when I do that. Does it mean that the lab ID is already linked to Microsoft? You just have to line a query, then the features will come, then you do the control at the end. Thank you so much.
Sure. So to answer your first question, yes, RapiD is available for you to edit with. It's not available from the main OpenStreetMap edit page, but you can get to it through this URL, mapwith.ai/rapid. And the overall mapping flow is you can get to it from within a tasking manager task that has it enabled, or you can do the same thing you just mentioned. Pop it open just like you would ID, zoom to the area you're interested in, and then you can begin mapping. However, the place where you're mapping may not have AI predictions in it. It may not have Microsoft buildings. Microsoft buildings are only available in a few countries. The Google Africa data set is not for every country in Africa. It's only available in some countries in Africa. So one of our issues that we're hoping to tackle in the future is to provide users like you a better idea of where to go in these global data sets where they can expect to see features. It's not a great experience for you to say, all right, I'd like to go to Kenya and try to map roads there. Now, we do happen to have roads in Kenya. I'm just picking that out as an example, but it's not a great experience to go somewhere and hope that there are predicted features waiting for you to map and then find that there aren't any. So we'd like to do a better job giving you the information that, yes, there should be buildings in the area you're looking at. Yes, there are roads. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Cool.
And looks like we have a question on how often like the satellite imagery is updated. So for example, if we detect buildings, but then a typhoon happens and things are changed. So I'm not totally sure on that. Banner, Zach, do you know? Like it can vary by place in the world, of course.
It can definitely vary. It even varies among an individual satellite imagery provider. So you could find that we can look at a couple of providers here. I have favorited Maxar Premium, Mapbox Satellite, and Bing Maps. Those tend to be the most updated globally. But as you use RapiD and ID, different imageries will become available depending on where you're looking in the world. So there are, for example, some imageries that are available only in like portions of Croatia, and they'll just sort of show up here that you can use. Unfortunately, we do not have a good way to surface the last updated of a particular image. And that's something we are talking with other satellite imagery vendors right now to try and obtain and to surface that information to give you an idea of like, hey, this image is 3 years old. It's not going to have anything up to date as far as like an urgent disaster type mapping scenario. So that's another thing that we can certainly improve. As a stopgap though, if you find that a particular set of imagery is good in an area that you're mapping in, then by all means click it to favorite it, and then you can swap back and forth between different imageries seamlessly. It's not a perfect solution, but it's better than having to go back and manually click on imagery as you map around.
And I also just wanted to call out, in addition to the imagery latency, we also, the timeliness of the actual predictions is dependent really just on when these different services update it. For instance, Google just released the Africa data set last year. We have no idea on the like cadence that they plan to redo the predictions and update it with newer imagery, and Microsoft does it at irregular cadences as well. But if you ever do have a particular area that feels extremely out of date, there are channels to connect with Microsoft team to be able to ask for an update and yeah, see where that goes.
Excuse me, Ben.
Yes. Yes. Malina, is it okay I ask James and Susan first because they raised their hand first? Will that be fine?
Sure.
Okay. Ben, James, please feel free to open your mic and ask your question.
Thank you very much. So, there are a lot of editors who are using OSM concurrently. So what do you do if there is sort of a conflict between certain map features that have been provided by somebody who, quote unquote, lives in the area versus a data set from Google or Microsoft that doesn't necessarily match what is there. Because I've seen sometimes in OSM where you go into OSM, you look for a location and you go there and they have mapped a road at a place where a road doesn't exist. So how do you go about solving that? Now, secondly, you did say that some of these building shapes and things have been licensed to you from, let's say, certain metropolitan assemblies or what have you. So what do you do in the case where there are no such licenses or you don't have any knowledge of the existence of such licenses?
Cool. Okay, so let me answer the first part of your question. Has to do with the shape conflicts, for example, and these do happen, right? You will occasionally pop open your editor and you will see that there is a building somewhere where the satellite imagery would lead you to think there's just an open field, or the opposite. There may be an open field mapped in the OSM data and it's been replaced by, a shopping center. And in this case, there's really not a whole lot you can do from satellite imagery unless you have a mapper on the ground that you can call on the phone and ask to have go look at it. Or this is a great use case for street level imagery, where if there happens to be street level imagery around there, perhaps that's more up to date and you can look at that to try and get another data point about which is correct. So if both the base map satellite imagery and the street level imagery are showing you one thing, but the data that's being mapped there is showing you a different thing, then that's a conflict. There are a couple of different ways you can tackle this. Perhaps the mapper who added the feature wasn't clear on how to add things correctly, and maybe they just added the feature incorrectly, in which case OpenStreetMap just asks the community to engage with each other. You can actually find the user that submitted that feature and then send them a note just saying, this doesn't appear to match the local imagery. And you may get a response from them that says something like, yes, but I'm a local and I know that there is actually a shopping center here and the imagery is old. So there's really no other way to resolve these sorts of conflicts definitively. It's a community effort to try and figure that out. And I am blanking on the second part of your question. Can you repeat it? Sorry.
Yeah, so the second part of the question was based on the fact that when you were looking at the Indianapolis, you said some of these things have been given to you by the state, the city, so they have been sort of licensed images, shapes, whatever it is.
Right.
So in the case where such licenses do not exist or you don't know the existence of them, what do you do?
Yes. So if we do not have explicit licensing and approval from an entity to share their data with OpenStreetMap, it will absolutely not show up in RapiD. We will not allow it to be displayed. So we actually, that's one of the things that Esri does on our behalf, is that they have a staff of people who will work with municipalities, walk them through the process of adding the appropriate licensing to their data sets. And then and only then will we show the data set in RapiD. So there's no problem with, I added things from the wrong data set and now we've got unlicensed data inside OpenStreetMap that we need to revert. We avoid all of that headache.
Okay, thank you. I had a third question to follow up on the first answer you gave, but I can see there are a lot of hands, so maybe later I'll just bring it up.
Okay. Thanks, James. Good questions.
Thanks, James. Let's go on to Zan.
Hey, thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi, Ben, and hi, Miko. I have just a quick question about the numbers. I don't know, we talked about it, but maybe you can tell me again how many buildings and how many millions of kilometers are in RapiD and are ready to be mapped. I don't know, maybe you have a bit of a number, or so we can imagine how much it is.
Sure. So just probably the biggest data set that we have available in the data set integration from Esri is the Africa Buildings data set. And that's over 500,000 buildings available in Africa. We've already added, I think, something around 20 million kilometers of roads to the world map just using meta roads. And there are many, many more millions left for us to do. However, I don't have a good handle on how many of those roads are in fact correct and how many of them are false positives. For example, we sometimes predict a road as what is actually a creek or a riverbed. So there's a lot of incorrect roads sitting in that data set waiting to not be added to the map. As far as Microsoft buildings, I believe that is on the order of millions, perhaps even tens of millions. But I don't have that data at my fingertips. But suffice to say, it's quite a lot of data. It requires a lot of care and attention just to manage the data and keep it in data stores and to make sure that it's fetchable on a fast basis for people to use without having to wait a ton of time while you're using RapiD.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Next, Malinga, your turn.
Yeah, thank you, Miko. And I have a question for the Ben. So Ben, let's say if we are going to use background imagery as a TMS layer, like drone image, is this RapiD algorithm support that drone imagery to find the roads and buildings?
So using drone imagery is certainly, if you have a layer that is available in TMS,
yeah,
you can certainly look at the imagery index that RapiD loads and try to add your imagery index. So we have an entirely separate imagery index. It's basically just a big file full of these different TMS layers, and you can contribute to that TMS index. But I'm not sure if drone imagery has been used to great effect, as it's sort of hyperlocal. I'm much more used to the global satellite imagery data that covers the entire planet.
For an example, Ben, so we can use OpenAerial map.org to create a TMS layer for the drone imagery. So we can use the local, let's say local administrative works for the drone images. So then I am wondering if the RapiD is supporting that kind of works with the drone imagery.
Yeah, that would be something to contribute to the, I think it's the editor layer index, which is a separate project within OSM. And that is the thing that provides ID and JOSM and RapiD with all of these selections under backgrounds here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Malina. I think someone raised their hand a while ago. Is it Chilufia?
Yeah,
Are you going to, do you want to ask a question, Chilufia? Okay. Anyone else would like to raise their hand? Going once.
Hi.
Okay, James, you go ahead.
Yes. So usually when I do see a lot of these to be focused more on the editing part, but I would like to know how it could be used to validate existing data sets.
That's an excellent question. So right now, validating existing data within OSM is not something that we are well set up to do. And the reason for that is we try to do our best to what our dev team calls conflate or remove any features from our Facebook roads or the Microsoft buildings layers if they already exist in OSM. So for example, Microsoft may have a building predicted right here over this building that's already in OSM. But if you were to enable the Microsoft building layer, our backend service would actually do a quick comparison and say, okay, there's 6 buildings in this scene. I have 6 buildings from Microsoft that line up very accurately with those, so I won't show those to the user. So right now the workflow is geared almost entirely towards adding new features to the map, rather than it is to validate and perhaps replace other features in the map. And that is a workflow that we are looking into doing sometime in 2023. It's very up in the air right now. I can't promise anything, but we're calling that feature something along the lines of like edit in place or replace geometry, where you could open RapiD and then say, I'm interested in what Microsoft thinks are the good buildings here, and then to show the user a sort of almost like a visual difference kind of UI, where you can say, does this building look good, or should we replace it with this other building that either Google or Microsoft predicted? But that's a very good question, not something we support right now.
Okay, so the main reason I asked that was that sometimes when you're mapping, the satellite image might be very blurry. So you don't know what you're actually looking at. So
Yep.
you just use intuition to just hope that it's a building. Now I have worked with a taxi manager project in Madagascar, so where the buildings are very round and very blurred, so you can't really see what you're looking at. So I was just thinking if it was possible for maybe one of the RapiD, Google Homes, or whoever to probably give a data set that we could use to validate some of these things, but we are not too sure.
Right. Yeah, we have received similar requests in the past for this kind of a thing. And yeah, that's something we're looking at developing. But I totally understand, generally, if you have a place where the satellite imagery is a bit blurry, those are usually, satellite companies are most interested in covering places where there is high population. So you'll find that urban areas get a lot of satellite coverage and satellites pass over them all of the time. And then as you get further out from those dense population centers, the imagery isn't quite as good, maybe blurrier, it's not updated anywhere near as often. And so you run into problems like that. Yeah, but unfortunately, we don't have a way to sort of combat that right now within RapiD.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
Sure, thanks for the great questions. Now, while we wait, I do have one more thing to show people. You may not be able to really get an idea of how much faster this new version of RapiD that we're working on is, but Chris sort of hinted at this. This is the big thing that the development team is working on right now. It's not quite ready, but it's a much more performant version of RapiD where the renderer has been rewritten. So you should see a pretty significant frame rate increase. So as you're sitting there, if you're really zoomed out over an urban area with the mainline RapiD right now, you'll notice it's pretty slow. You can click and drag the map and it can take like a half a second or a second before it actually updates the screen. And that gets even worse as you zoom out. But this new version of RapiD that we have is very capable of zooming around at much higher zooms than the old version was capable of. You can see like it's a little bit hard to see now. I'll turn the satellite imagery off and then you can see a little bit more. It's getting to the point where like the individual buildings are starting to look like points. And again, you may not be able to appreciate this over a Zoom video link because there's some latency, but the frames per second is much faster with this new version that we're hoping to release sometime by the end of this year. So we're pretty excited for that. You can actually try this out at this link, which is rapid-SOTM for state of the map -2022. And that's there available for you to browse and kind of just check it out.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yep. I don't think we have any more questions for now, but let's just follow up in the chat later on if there might be. So the next portion that we have before we open our breakout room. So the breakout rooms will be opening 3. Okay, no one can see my beautiful face. So we'll be opening 3 breakout rooms today so that each of the regions can do a very quick demo on how to load the RapiD from the tasking manager. So we're going to open that. But before we do, can everyone answer this attendance sheet before so that we could also record everyone who would like to get electronic certificate from this training session with Chris and Ben. So I'm just sharing it now. So please do also sign up in this sheet so that we could follow up or forward to you the recording of this, the link for this recording. For those who were not able to catch up, so at least you'll be able to have the whole conversation on your computer. Okay, so I'll just give a few minutes for that, maybe 1 to 2 minutes while everyone's signing up. And then, oh wait, let me try again. Thank you for the heads up, James. You the best. Just a second.
Miko, I also see some people have already left, so it would also be good to check in with them as well. So there will be a couple of people who will not be able to fill in the form right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll just email everyone who signed up. But for those who are here, please do sign up. Just a second. Let me fix the link. Okay, I think the link is now working. Can everyone try this one? Please sign up in this link. Yes, Malinga? While everyone's signing up, can someone check if it's working now?
Yeah, I have another question for the Ben. Ben, can you explain or give some more detail about how this RapiD, I mean, generating the data using the satellite image? Is it correct? This, I mean,
yes, we didn't really cover that.
yeah, because if the satellite imagery is blurry, is it possible to generate more data or less data? I mean, normally it's less data, right? So when the that's why I'm trying to fill the gap with the drone imagery. When the drone imagery is blur, so we can use TMS layer as a TMS techniques as a background layer drone image. So then this support generate the clear data. I mean, so I don't know if it's possible or not, but this is my question.
Well, I will go back to my presentation just for a moment. And so you can see the background here that I'm showing, all of these purple, pink imagery. So what this is, in effect, is this is what we would call a raster map of what our AI, our neural nets, are trained on to try and predict. So if we were to zoom in, basically the AI prediction tries to make a guess at any one particular point on the world, whether or not it's a road. And that's represented in this map by the pink color. So basically the darker the color, the more likely the AI thinks that there is a road there, which is why you get sort of very solid, thick stripes of road in certain places. And then it kind of gets a little bit more faded for smaller roads or roads that it's a little bit less confident in. So we actually entered into a contract with Maxar, which is an imagery provider. We basically bought the entire planet's worth of satellite imagery from them, stored it in our own data centers, and then proceeded to create mapping data. And the mapping training data we provided was actually created by human cartographers. So they would sit down with like a mapping square somewhere, a piece of imagery, and then they would hand add all of the features to it. Here's a building, here's a road, etc. And then we would take all of that training data, send it at our neural net, and the neural net was then, after training, cut loose on the entire planet's worth of imagery. So there's a lot more to just generating this raster map, because OpenStreetMap is just interested in lines. So we actually have to do what we call a vectorization of all of this like sort of fuzzy data, and to say, okay, this road we're not so confident in, we'll leave that out of the data set. But some of these thicker, brighter roads, we'll just convert those to individual lines with points in them. And that is what gets sent to RapiD when we draw the features on the screen for you to add as those vectorized shapes. So it's a very quick hand-wavy explanation for how this works. Now, I'm not sure about supplementing with drone imagery because, you know, the problem there is that you have to do a lot of very aggressive stitching.
Yes,
Drones are very, you know, they're
Yeah.
much lower to the ground. So the stitching problem is much more difficult to solve than it is when you have a satellite 80,000, 90,000 feet above sea level. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, that's clear my doubts. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, so while everyone's answering the form, okay, and before we jump to our breakout rooms, is it okay we open our cameras very quickly so that I could take a picture, and I might forget this again later on. And yeah. Okay, please open your cameras for those who want to be in the picture. I'm going to frame this picture later. Okay. Okay. How many pages do I see? Okay, 3 pages, everyone. So please smile for 9 seconds. Okay. So first page, please smile. Wait, let me save it. Page. Okay, next page. Please smile. Don't be shy. Yeah, okay. Third page. One last time. Please smile. Okay, perfect. Okay, I'll be opening now the breakout room. So our trainers in each breakout room will be doing a quick demo on how you could load RapiD using the tasking manager. So please click on this. Where's my breakout rooms? Okay. So on the lower portion, if you see the breakout room, please just join the region that you would want to do the demo. So for, I think, yeah, so I think it's open now. Just click on the breakout room and join there.
How much time do we have for the breakout rooms?
Okay, let's just do a very quick one. Let's just have 15 minutes for each breakout room. Just do a demo on how to load the RapiD on the tasking manager.
Cool, okay.
Thank you.
What? Yeah, I remember this. It's a glitch, but they don't let you.
Yes, James. Sorry. Okay. If you need help, I'm not sure, Chan, which page you are in. Anyway, I didn't check. So please jump to the breakout rooms. If you need help transferring to your breakout room, please do tell me in the chat. I'll transfer you to which region you want to go. If you for the others who don't have the region, please feel free to visit the other rooms. Topig, which region do you want to join? Western North Africa, Eastern South Africa, Asia, or the Pacific? Just chat it in the chat box if you want to be transferred to a specific region and manually transferring them. Okay, thank you, Toby. Transferring now. Hi, side.
Hi, Miko.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hanging up here. Currently it's like 5 a.m. in my location. I changed my location last minute to San Diego. I was supposed to be in London when we were planning this event, but yeah, I just want to be there anyway. Yeah, thanks for hosting, and it was really fun. I really love the energy of the group and all the questions. So we should definitely keep this going more, right?
Yeah. Good thing your team is here because if it's a typical map and chat hour and I get those questions, I might say, okay, see you next time.
Yeah, sure. I already synced with Chris, like internally, like he was available like during the time. So you did tech run. But seems everything went super well. I'm so happy that we could cover most of the, discussions we want to have, also answer questions. Also, I shared Map with AI feedback channel on the mapper support. So if any other mappers, any other users want to, have a question, we can. I mean, we're already like a member of HUD, so we will be there to ready to answer their questions. So feel free to tag us on the Slack channel so we can just jump in easily.
Thank you, Sai.
I will check breakout rooms if they have any questions or any support. So
I'll just stay here.
yeah, sure. So like in the breakout rooms, we are mapping tasks, right, at the moment.
I think they're just going to do a quick demo on how to load it on the actual tasking manager.
Oh yeah.
Might not have enough time to map.
Sounds good. All right. Catch you up later. Cheers.
Yes. Okay, so there's a thunderstorm here now in my place, so I need to close the meeting already. Anyway, again, please sign up in this link so that we can prepare your e-certificate for this training, and also send the video link to you so that you could recap your session. Okay. Malinga, do you have a question?
Yeah, is there any way to contact Ben or other expert when we need some help regarding RapiD or something like that? Slack channel also be nice. Slack ID.
Yes.
Is it okay?
In the HotOSM workspace, Slack workspace, there's a map with AI _feedback channel.
Okay.
And you can contact by Ben, myself, I'm Zach. I think Said and Chris might be in there as well. And I think Chris also created a Telegram group.
Okay.
But if you're already in Slack, that should be the easiest way.
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah, okay. Thanks,
Perfect.
thanks, Zach. Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you again, Malinga. Anyway, any last words to our very, very lovely guests today? Ben, Zach, Said, Chris, are you still there? Yeah.
No, thanks for having us. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, for the knowledge sharing.
That was amazing. Thanks, everyone. And then if you need any support, reach us on Slack or support@mapillary.com. So
Yeah, we love connecting with users. So thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
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 Thank you, Chan, Shami, and Honey for wrapping up.